Hey Jason, please and doom. Welcome to the podcast that's throwing the social outfit outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the ultimate Peter, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone. My camera is off because I am finishing up eating. My family got Chinese tonight, and this one Chinese place we go to, if you order food past a certain amount, they will give you a whole bunch of those sugar Chinese donuts for free. And I just can't pass up eating them. But also, people don't need to be subjected to my eating, so I am gorging myself on Chinese deep fried heaven right now.
Yes, and I'm your host last time I want to be the brains of pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
Because of aforementioned deep fried bliss, I am fine.
So first off, I do want to apologize to everyone. So first off, the first week that we did not do this podcast, which I did mention in a post on our Discord, that I unfortunately had fallen sick and I wasn't really able to do the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I did get better, clearly, as you can tell. Unfortunately, we found out later that for some reason our internet was somewhat slow and things, and effectively, I don't know, it was effectively like we had only 100 gigs a month, and we had already gone through that. But we were able to reassess our plan, and now we're doing fine. Yeah, it was just a whole bunch of bullshit that just took us forever to try to figure out and fix.
So this week you get a twofer, so we can catch up on 2 weeks worth of stuff that we missed.
Yeah.
Which actually is more like 2.5 weeks of stuff, but that means we'll be saving some stuff for next week.
Mm-hmm. And again, I do want to say I'm sorry about that. Like, I know most of it was kind of out of my control, but I still feel somewhat guilty because it was a lot on my end.
This is what's been happening for the last 3 days. He keeps feeling guilty about this, and I keep reminding him that it's not within his control, so he doesn't have anything to feel bad about.
But yeah, so yeah, we got that fixed. We're gonna be doing this, and again, like Dawn said, we're gonna be doing catch up. All the stuff here is stuff we were going to do 2 weeks ago, and tomorrow will be this week. No, yeah, this simultaneously this week and the week before, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, to just so we're not dilly dallying anymore. Dalton sent me this. This is from slashfilm.com. It's time for superhero movies to take a nice long break for their own good. This is written by Jenna Bush, and written or updated March 23rd, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I don't think we ever really cover much on like the quote unquote superhero movie fatigue. But I think we have both made our position on it known before of like, we don't really think it is a thing.
The variable that's worth paying attention to is the quality variable. It doesn't matter what the genre is, and quite frankly, people seem to actually really like the superhero genre when it's done well or even done decently. It's just it hasn't been. It's been going through a slump recently, and quite frankly, the film intelligentsia of Hollywood seem to have been begging for superhero fatigue to be a thing ever since the superhero genre existed, and it pisses me off.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a thing. We kind of put it in my words, right? I don't kind of dumbing it down, I suppose, because Don really covers a good point. Yeah, it really is about a quality thing, and lately there hasn't been like a lot of good superhero movies. I mean, what I mean by that is, for some reason, I don't want to like make it specifically about Marvel, but they have been the ones that turn out the most superhero content as of late. Um, but there does seem to be like a lack of effort put into a lot of these films recently, and I think people are starting to see that. And personally, again, I would like to see more,
Mm-hmm.
like with superhero movies, like the Batman or Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Um,
And here's how you know it's not superhero fatigue full stop, because the last season of The Boys was the most successful season of The Boys. And Invincible did gangbuster viewer numbers on Amazon as well. So it's clearly not superhero content that people have an issue with. It's just
quality.
DC never really got off the ground, period, because they keep making one step forward and two steps back. And Marvel used to be the thing that, like, as the old saying goes, a rising tide raises all ships. Well, as it turns out, the tide of Marvel is kind of ebbing, and therefore the entire genre is ebbing along with it. But I guarantee you that The Boys season 4 is going to do well, and I guarantee you Invincible season 2 is going to do well. So it's clearly not the genre. It's just people are people are sick of the poor decision making from Warner Brothers and Disney more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is very clear from the Ruby Justice League crossover movie. That was really. I haven't seen it yet. I kind of want to, but a part of me also wants, like, a really stupid part of me that wants to get that. It was a really DVD release movie
Mm-hmm.
and like review it for this podcast, but I don't want to torture myself.
Yeah, Ruby betrayed his too innocent for this world trust, because it used to be his favorite show and now it's bad.
It's the anime equivalent, like as Don likes to put it often. It's the anime equivalent of Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. When Brainstormer first started telling me about Ruby, because most of what I know about Ruby comes from either Brainstormer or someone that I knew from college who was a really big fan of it. Um, when he first started describing to me the things that the writers were doing wrong with Ruby, it gave me such a big sense of deja vu, because Once Upon a Time did the exact same shit, and it's kind of hilarious that they're both essentially fairy tale fan fictions, one way or the
Um, it's weird. I'm sorry, a little tangent here before we actually get into the real stuff.
other.
But everyone always calls like when something's badly written fan fiction, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure a majority of fan fiction is bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I've been fortunate enough to read a lot of like really good fan fiction that honestly could equate or substitute the actual product.
Mm-hmm. I think when they say fanficky, they mean like amateurish, because the implication is supposed to be like you can tell that an inexperienced writer wrote this. Whereas with good fan fiction, as you say, it's often better than what Hollywood actually comes up with.
Yeah. So yeah, like something we always talk about is like defining a term. I think it's just like that's what always gets me is like the colloquial term of fan fiction.
There's a
it's
lot of
just,
unnecessary implications of it that imply that no one who ever writes fanfic can be good, which is just sad. It's both sad and
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. Um, anyway, that was just a quick tangent there. I'm sorry about that. It's just like that has always been something that's gonna bug me whenever I hear someone talk about, like, also with like cosplays too. Like I've seen cosplay, like people have made cosplays that are better than like a lot of like movie costumes and stuff.
Yeah, it's because the movie costume departments and the show costume departments don't put in any effort, whereas a fan of something is driven by their passion of liking a thing usually, and therefore they put in all the effort.
Yeah.
It still floors me that every Dream of the Endless cosplay I've ever seen prior to the Netflix adaptation was able to do the dark eyes and white skin, but the multi-billion-dollar industry of Netflix couldn't even be bothered to do it with visual effects
Uh,
because apparently white makeup and black contacts are way too expensive, I guess.
anyway, sorry, tangent there.
Uh-huh.
Moving on.
Hmm.
When I was a little girl watching Christopher Reeve as Superman, I dreamed of a day when I'd see Wonder Woman, the X-Men, and the other superheroes I loved on the big screen as well. Back then, between the weird looks I get for loving superheroes, this was before the world at large acknowledged that people of all genders could love anything they wanted. I read comics and thought of storylines that could work in a film. I mean, okay, minus the gender thing.
Yeah, sweetheart, it's not gendered. Boys got that same look because it was just seen that if you liked geek shit, then you were basically invalid, or you were a pariah, or you were an abomination against nature or some shit. It's clearly wrong, and most of the like 90s and 2000s being owned by high school geeks that went on to become multi billionaires proves that maybe the geeks were onto something. But yeah, no, it's not gendered. It's never been gendered. It's always been, oh, you like the wrong thing, well then you're invalid because reasons.
Hello, Dragon Turtle. You're good. I'm doing fine. I got over my sickness uh, like the week after. Um, I had to cancel that podcast, that show. Um,
But his modem was also not functional because apparently there was some kind of lapse in his um, internet policy.
yeah, it was just so stupid. Um, it was a whole thing. It was just, I'm not gonna get into
But
it because
this week you get a twofer on Saturday and Sunday because we are essentially catching up by putting 2 weeks worth of content into 2 days worth of show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and the machine spirit was also sick. Um, so yeah.
Good call forward, Dragon Turtle there.
So yeah,
If I
we're
believed in machine elves, you might have a point. I'm not. I am currently agnostic on the concept of machine elves, mostly.
um. So basically, this article that we're covering right now is effectively talking about the superhero fatigue or supposed superhero fatigue.
Hmm.
We were just getting into it when you popped on, so
Yeah, you're not that late. You missed maybe a paragraph. It's fine.
well, also like
Actually,
two.
not even. You missed like a sentence because we stopped up to the first like sentence.
No, that was rough. No, I wouldn't say it was a paragraph, but it was. Yeah, it was the opening to it. So
Okay, but in any case, you're not late, Dragon Turtle. We just got
yeah,
going, and
yeah.
my camera is off because I'm eating dessert because my family got Chinese this week or yeah today, and when the place we order Chinese food from, if you order a certain amount of food, they will give you to-go containers worth of those addictive little Chinese donuts for free, and I wasn't gonna pass them up. But I also hate eating on stream, and nobody needs to see me eat. So my camera is off until I have finished gorging myself on deep fried Chinese goodness.
Moving on, or anything else?
Yeah, moving forward.
Okay. As technology advanced, it seemed more and more likely that the case skills would finally break through and become more common as film stars, which, yeah, they have. I remember the day I interviewed Jon Favreau for a comedy film and asked him about the upcoming Iron Man. He told me he was surprised and happy that I'd heard about the character. A whole lot of people hadn't back then. I mean, yeah, back then he was like a B-list superhero before.
Yeah, most of the original Marvel, Marvel Cinematic Universe proper superheroes were like the B or C list characters, because back in the 90s when the speculator boom happened and both DC and Marvel almost went bankrupt, DC sold wholesale to Warner Brothers, and Marvel sold off a bunch of their major IPs, the ones that Hollywood thought would make the best movies, to other studios. Sony got the Spider-Man mythos, and Fox got the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and Universal got Hulk. So when Kevin Feige was making his attempt at a shared comic book cinematic universe, he basically took all of the characters that Hollywood didn't think they would want someday and was like, what do you mean these are B and C list characters? I'll show you these characters can be just as recognizable and just as household names as all the other ones. And lo, the MCU was born. With a little bit of help from Universal, because they did allow them to use the Hulk as long as they didn't make a Hulk solo movie. Moving forward.
I can imagine how I felt. You can imagine how I felt during the lead up to Avengers Endgame. There were a few clunkers, sure, but overall the world building execution was so much fun. I explained comic book history to my family members. I made a noise only dogs could hear when the Wonder Woman film was announced. I cried joyful tears at the premiere, even though the third act was messy, just for getting to finally see her on the big screen.
I mean, that's all fair enough. I think we've all been there at some point. That's the obligatory nerds win fuck yeah moment.
I guess I actually never had that moment. I'll be fully honest. Just because I kind of grew up with all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, by the time you were coming up, it was pretty much like, how old were you in 2008?
8 or 9. No, yeah, 8.
So you would have been 12 when Avengers happened and changed basically everything.
Honestly,
Birthing the superhero genre onto the blockbuster scene, basically.
I'll be fully honest. Never hit me. It never hit me that was so big.
I mean, the first 3 or 4 movies in the MCU only made like, somewhere in the general region of like 300 to 500 million each, and then Avengers made like 1.1 some billion, I think. So again, yeah, it was a big deal.
Again, it just never hit me because I was
because you were 12.
Yeah.
You weren't invested in the game yet.
Well, no.
To be fair, I will admit to this: I didn't care that much about the Avengers movie, and the reason is because I was thinking, well, sure, they can do these sort of mainstream heroes, but they're never going to get around to doing my guys. And then James Gunn made Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and completely blew me out of the water in 2014. I think truth to tell, I think I wasn't excited about the MCU existing until Guardians 1 came out. And then that's when I started to have hope of like, oh, oh, the training wheels are off. We can actually get some weird and obscure ones. Yay. And then, of course, they announced that they were doing a Doctor Strange movie in 2016 shortly after that. I think it was in the Comic-Con after Guardians came out. And my brain just about melted. Of course, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but, que sera, sera.
You
Mm-hmm.
I've spent my career writing about superheroes and genre projects, thrilled with each announcement until it wasn't. It wasn't one or even several bad movies that did. It's the sheer frequency with which they're being churned out and a few other more complicated ideas. I mean, okay, that's not entirely like that's
Yeah, the problem becomes you're about to try and blame the entire genre for that, and that's not right.
right. It's weird. Like I don't necessarily disagree, but yeah, like it's more so where she's left
Yeah,
aimless.
the underlying axioms aren't the problem. It's where you're taking those axioms to a false conclusion that's the problem.
I mean, Captain America wasn't giant though. Even without the Hulk, they missed the entirety of the Avengers, including Iron Man and Hulk. I can believe maybe Iron Man was more obscure, but still, Cap.
Yeah, no, Cap was very obscure.
Hmm.
I mean, hell, despite the fact that I still to this day maintain that Captain America 1 is the best of the trilogy, it only made 327. No, I think it was 370 million. It was Cap was very obscure back in the day.
Hmm.
And the closest thing to a movie or anything relating to him back in the day was some really cheesy B movies in the 70s. Of course, that still makes him fare better than my beloved Doctor Strange, and we won't even talk about the 70s incarnation of that character because I don't.
There were '90s Captain America movies. I mean, they were still bad, but
Yeah, but point being, well, there was also Iron Man the animated series, um, around that same time. But yeah, as far as anyone who wasn't a card carrying nerd was concerned, Captain America was fairly obscure. Like the name Captain America might have been in the common parlance, but almost nobody associated it with the actual character. It was just kind of a term for a jingoist or someone who was overly patriotic.
mm-hmm. Enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Just like the fact that most people probably don't know off the top of their heads that Fu Manchu was a comic book character first. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
that's Shang-Chi's father, right? Who's also a dragon.
Yeah, and an evil immortal sorcerer. Yeah,
Hmm.
that they swapped for the Mandarin. Which, to be honest with you, I don't hate. Like that, it's one of those. It compresses the lore in a way that actually makes logical sense. Things that I didn't mind so much.
Hmm.
And they also couldn't get away with Fu Manchu because Fu Manchu is or was very much a really cheesy Asian stereotype.
All right. It's time for superhero films to uh, take a break, or at least give us a bit of pause before they kill the genre for decades.
I mean, again, I would rather they just fix the quality. Like they could just do that. They don't need to like superhero fatigue itself is not a thing. And and before anyone says it is, I would point out that there have been articles about superhero fatigue literally since the year Avengers came out. Like people have been complaining about superhero fatigue for as long as the genre has existed. Primarily, it seems because they just want people to get sick of superhero movies for some reason. Because they don't consider superhero content to be valid content or valid art, which is bullshit. Anyway, moving forward.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
Mhm.
I had to go splash some water on my face because I was dozing a bit.
Hmm.
I'm so that was a bit of background on that. I wake up super early in the morning and I'm up most of the day. So yeah, I'm a little tired.
Hmm.
Well, little. I'm a lot tired, but
And I'm gonna wipe my mouth before I show up on camera again because I'm sure there's sugar all over my face.
right, okay. Uh, we know too much about the behind the scenes dealings. Uh, I can't mark the exact moment that I started to feel superhero fatigue because I genuinely liked some of the recent ones. I thought Shazam and its sequel, Shazam Fury of the Gods, was lovely. Though the box office for the sequel was pretty dismal at 30.5 million opening weekend.
Yeah, that you can blame James Gunn for because he basically said nothing until Superman Legacy and Creature Commandos matter, which is why that was a very stupid time to announce his upcoming. Like, I would have waited until after Flashpoint. That's when I would have done it. But, I don't get consulted with these decisions. Because that would have also been the perfect time to get people hyped for that. Like, Flashpoint nukes the universe. What's going to happen next? Oh, well, here's James Gunn telling you. But no, he did it like 6 months ahead of time. And now everyone knows that nothing prior to Superman Legacy and Future Commandos connect to anything.
Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Zachary Levi's recent comments about vaccines didn't help a number going by the Twitter comments I got for posting my interview with him. I love the Batman and Joker and I adored Black Panther Wakanda Forever, while also realizing it was overstuffed.
I mean, I don't think anyone gave a fuck about Zachary Levi's comments on vaccines.
For
The only
context,
the only things I saw about his comments on vaccines were positive. Maybe there was some, angry Twitterati bitching at him over it, but the angry Twitterati aren't a large percentage of any given audience anyway because they don't actually like to consume things. I.e., they don't buy tickets, so their approval or disapproval doesn't really affect the box office at all. Unlike the actual fans, who Hollywood nevertheless tries to alienate at every drop of a hat.
um, whew, good, good, shit. Um, yeah. I'll read that in a second, guys. I was gonna say. At this point, we're not just invested in the story of the superheroes themselves, also invested in what goes on behind the scenes. The nine picture deals that started with the MCU were a huge piece of news when they first happened, and now we hear about them all the time, taking some mystery away. That just personalized and controversial comments and actions actually affect people's feelings about films. Consider how embattled the Flash has been with Star Ezra Miller this week. I mean, to be fair, don't get me wrong, that's probably a contributing factor to Flash, but I mean, we'll talk more about that maybe tomorrow.
The headline that I think matters more is how flippant James Gunn has been, especially on Twitter, about basically dissing and disrespecting everything that came before, everything that DC has done before. That I think is probably what's going to tank the Flash even more than Ezra Miller being a creepy little shit. That being said, I disagree with this fundamental premise of yours. The fundamental premise you're operating with is that us having behind the scenes knowledge is a bad thing, and I don't agree. I think number one, informed consumers are always better than non-informed consumers, and number two, knowledge is always a good thing. Number three, it's good that people have started paying attention to how movies and stuff are made, rather than just blindly, consuming what's on screen and not thinking about the behind the scenes stuff. I think that's a sign of an educated populace, which is also a good thing. It also allows people to hold Hollywood to higher standards, because now that we know the chicanery you get up to, we can actually make our purchases accordingly. I.e., if you're a studio that does something remarkably stupid, cough DC cough, we can express to you in no uncertain terms that we think you're being stupid. Whereas if you're a studio that does the right thing, like say the director of Sonic 2 putting his foot down and forcing I want to say it was 20th Century Fox to hold the movie until they could actually fix the aesthetics of the movie and make sure it actually resembled what the fans wanted, we can encourage that kind of behavior. It's a shame Hollywood hasn't cottoned on to the fact that because we can make these decisions consciously now, you should go out of your way to please the fan base whenever you can, and avoid pissing off the fan base also whenever you can. Instead, it's basically inverted, because Hollywood is operating on an ideology that says it's immoral to please the fans and it's moral to spite them for reasons.
Okay, I'll read the first paragraph, then I'll get some comments. The rise of superhero films are the dominant box office moneymakers, preceded with the rise of social media. It isn't just what stars are saying, as the toxic side expand everything puts people off as well. As someone who loves both Marvel and DC, I've seen cruelty and harassment on both sides. If I like a film, I'm told this studio is paying me. If I dislike a film, I'm apparently a monster who should be killed. Yes, this has actually been said to me more than once.
Yeah, and that's bullshit. I agree with you. I think it is sad that no matter which side you're on, you get hit with somebody's stink stick. That being said, that doesn't mean that the superhero genre is to blame for this. Also, I don't know how much the rise of social media has contributed to superhero movies being the dominant genre. Because here's the thing: when Hollywood is healthy, there is always a dominant genre. In fact, you can almost track how good the industry is doing with how much of a dominant genre there is. And that's why when there's no dominant genre, you get dark ages. I mean, prior to the launch of the MCU and DCEU, the most quality we had in terms of blockbusters were the Michael Bay Transformers of all things, and of course Twilight. So yeah, it's important for Hollywood's health to have a dominant genre. It just so happens that in this particular cycle, the dominant genre is the superhero movie. Prior to that, it was family-oriented fantasy films. Thank you, Steven Spielberg. And prior to that, it was westerns. And prior to that, it was the horror movie craze of the Universal Monsters variety and so on. Like when Hollywood is functioning properly, there's always a dominant genre. Just like I would imagine that if comic book movies can't straighten up and fly right in some kind of short order, video game movies will very soon become the dominant genre, and so much the better.
Okay. Personally, yes, but it's indicative of the culture of this film. It's hard to support a film if talking about it publicly runs the risk of harassment.
Okay, what the hell do you mean by harassment? And number two, why should we give a fuck?
So comments, just so I think, Gancho, I think that as ideology Don mentioned, it has two sources. One, elitism, they hold it that the celebrities influence producers, journalists, etc. are the priests or professors, and the plebs need to just shut up and listen. Two, there are certain demographics which they hate and thus angering them and destroying what they love morally good is a morally good thing for them.
That those are both perfectly salient observations, Dragon. Totally, yes.
Depends what you mean by dominant genre. Uh, I don't think we should have all the big stuff revolve around one or two genres at a time and wait a decade or two for the cycle to look back around.
Well, but see, Dragon Turtle, the thing is, the dominant genre isn't something that's decided upon. It's something that arises organically. Just like for example, for a very recent, very, topical example, nobody saw, Mario Brothers the movie making $1 billion coming. But it seems to be the case that genres go through cycles. They go through a cycle where most of the things they make in a given genre are bad before the genre is even technically a genre. And then once someone in that genre cracks the formula of how to make a good one, that genre arises to the apex and becomes the thing most people want to see. And then eventually, either through complacency or through mismanagement, or some combination of the two, the genre rests on its laurels too much and people get sick of it. Or more aptly, the film press go out of their way to try and stop a genre from becoming a genre for as long as they can, and the moment they accept it usually tends to be the time that the fad ends, which is sort of ironic to me. But my point is that it's fairly obvious that just like comic book movies before them, video game movies' time may have finally come, or at least might be coming. In the same way that, the genre really wasn't established, the comic book genre wasn't really established until the day Avengers came out, but there was, Iron Man and the Dark Knight prior to that. I think Super Mario Brothers the movie might be the equivalent to something like Iron Man, which means that Super Smash Brothers the movie is probably going to make just, you know, James Cameron's Avatar level of money, which I'm fine with. I wonder when James will start complaining about video game movies. I'm going to be very amused when that happens.
I'm coming through okay, because Dradswell told me that I'm like a little hard to hear.
You were a little quiet there for a minute, but you're fine now.
Okay. All right, Dradswell, I'll read these last two comments and then we'll move on. Okay. I don't want to like
Mhm.
just yeah. All right. Okay. Yes, this is a rising organically just hated, especially since it seems to have entrenched pandering to the tourists, people just following what's popular. And unless you like everything, you are stuck waiting for the stuff you like to eventually get some time in the sun again, rather than a bit of everything in a constant drip. You start complaining as soon as you realize they are popular.
See, I don't know because here's the thing, Dragon Turtle. Once the genre has had its heyday and kind of disappeared a bit, what then happens is the blending of genres, which means that if the time has come for the comic book genre to die for a bit, I don't like it. I don't like it either. But think about this: how many similarities are there between comic books and video games? And after the video game genre has had its heyday, I would put money on manga/anime adaptations being the next in line for the throne. And that means in 30 years or so, we're going to get a world in which the most recently established genres are comic books, manga, and video games. And what do you think's going to happen then? They're going to bleed into each other. And once they bleed into each other, especially with the visual effects we might have in the next 30 years or so, that's when a genuine like kid in a candy store for geekdom will happen. Because if comic book movies or the remnants of comic book movies, the remnants of video game movies, and the remnants of manga movies or anime movies become as major for the coming generations as the sci-fi movie, the fantasy movie, and the book adaptation were for our generation, that's going to make a whole new generation of geeks in the making. Of course, it's highly probable that Hollywood will simply self-destruct before we could get that far, but I'm not going to give in to cynicism until I absolutely have to. I believe Hollywood will eventually sort themselves out, especially once the ESG score money dries up.
All right. All right. So we are moving on. I'm sorry, Daniel. I want to get your comments, but just for the sake of time, I do want to get through this.
We have a whole week's worth of stuff to do tonight and a whole week's worth of stuff to do tomorrow.
Yeah. All right.
And we can't really afford to shift stuff because we even have 2 or 3 things for actual next week already. It's been a busy week.
Yeah.
Of course, we go away for a bit and it becomes a busy week. Who knew?
I feel like the universe is fucking us.
We're getting trolled. Someone somewhere is trolling us, and I can't even bring myself to hate it because I do actually get the joke.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, too much CGI. All right. I have a lot of things. I think you and I both have a lot of things to say about this.
Mm-hmm.
But let's hear the ranking first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For a while, fans are more likely to forgive things like Wonder Woman and so many others like it having a third act that's largely CGI. But once the glut got bigger, it started to grate on audiences. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania broke my heart because I loved the first 2 films, but the effects and background in the quantum realm was so awful. Not at all helped by the way effects artists are treated these days, and it took me right out of it. Okay.
Again, you're conflating 2 very different things. You are rightfully diagnosing the lack of quality in the visual effects of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Your conclusion, however, is somehow that CGI in and of itself is a bad thing, and I don't agree. I think it's a quality issue. I mean, hell, James Cameron's Avatar movies are some of the most boring, soulless pieces of crap I've ever seen. But because they look nice, they make billions of fucking dollars.
Right. So the CGI thing is, and I'm going to keep it really to superhero stuff. Again, really, it boils down to quality than anything. That's always that's kind of been the issue for the last, I don't know, few years.
Yeah, that also is a very good point, Dragon Turtle. It's just another. It's just the hatred of animation under a different freaking guise. Never mind that some of the best uses of CGI is when real visual effect, real effects get blended with visual effects. I mean, hell, the first Jurassic Park still holds up 30 freaking years later.
Right. Well, there's also the thing of like, with the thing that you mentioned of the visual effects artists and how they're kind of fucked over, which is totally true, and I'm not going to underplay that.
Yeah, no, that's totally a thing, and it probably is what's contributing to most of the problem. Because I can guarantee you that if the visual effects artists were actually given the time and effort, given the time and resources they needed, every movie could look even better than James Cameron's Avatar. But because a lot of companies want things done instantaneously, the artists are forced to cut corners because they're literally possibly under a gun.
Like how all the ego slipped out about YouTubers. That was a thing.
Yeah, the like OnlyFans thoughts were and Twitch thoughts were really mad at the possibility of VTubers existing because how could a real woman possibly compete with a Drawn woman? Derp.
I mean, to be fair, the VTubers I've watched, I more just find them interesting with their personalities than anything.
Yeah, and that's the sneaky little hidden red pill that they don't want to address. Maybe if you were likable, thoughts, you wouldn't have your fan bases unsubscribing in droves.
Um, but yeah, it really is just a quality issue when you really boil it down to it. It's not like, um, yeah, it's really all it is lately. It's just
Yeah,
quality.
because we have the resources in freaking 2002 to basically do almost anything we wanted to with CG. Look at the three Matrix movies. Look at Inception.
Uh,
That was that was 2010. Um,
I do want to,
Avatar 1 was 2012. We've had the resources for a long while to basically do anything we wanted with CG. It's just you actually have to, just like every other freaking art form, put in the goddamn effort and give the people doing give the people putting in the effort enough resources to actually do their jobs properly.
hold on. 2009, not 2012 for Avatar.
Yeah, never. Oh yeah. Avatar was 2009 and Inception was 2010. So yeah, we've had the resources to basically do anything we can literally imagine with
Also,
CGI for a while now. It's just an
also,
issue of go ahead.
I was going to point out another example relating to superhero genre, right, in terms of a quality thing.
Hmm.
The first Iron Man with like its visual effects,
Hmm.
like you real like, and I remember someone mentioning this, like they actually compared the CGI of like Iron Man from like Infinity War and Endgame to
Hmm.
um to the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
Well, one, they actually constructed a full suit to kind of take the scans of
Yeah, and
his,
then they augmented it with CG. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, and that would always be my compromise for any movie, really.
Well, there's that. There's another thing I would like to point out, which is the main issue with CGI these days, even under the like duress circumstances that modern day CGI artists have to work with. If Yeah, and this was one of my main rebuttals to James Cameron and why I hate James Cameron's guts a little bit. If you have the resources to create anything you can imagine, and people don't find what you can create interesting, then where is it failing? If you can create literally anything you can imagine and people aren't responding to your imagination, maybe it's because you're just not that freaking imaginative. There's that variable, i.e., if you can create anything you can imagine, then audience will probably judge you on the quality of your imagination. So if the quality of your imagination, James, is just, oh, let's stick put Fern Gully, Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, and Aliens into a blender and see what sticks, then people aren't going to respond well to that, are they? Because we know now. See, this is the thing. CGI used to be inherently impressive because it was a new tool, and we all knew that there were limits of what you could do with it. But now that everyone has gotten used to CGI, and we all know that the only limits to what you can do with CGI are your own imagination. Well, if the end result of your creativity is shit, then it's clearly not the CGI's fault because you can create anything you can imagine with CGI. It's clearly not the budget's fault because a lot of CGI heavy movies have ungodly budgets. It must therefore be the person behind the camera, the person behind the CGI, simply wasn't that imaginative, therefore. And we can definitely judge artists for not being imaginative enough, can't we? That's why I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop on James Cameron, because sooner or later he's going to have to realize you can't just keep ramping the quality of the CG and not giving anyone a decent story to sink their teeth into. Moving on.
Um, I'll read that in a second, Jaron. So it's interesting. But
There are variables we can talk about with the Avatar movies as to why they're nowhere near as impactful as James Cameron wants to believe, even though they make a lot of money on paper. And I think I have talked about it before, but let's actually get back to the article.
there's only so much money at a studio, and if you're putting out 5 superhero films a year instead of 2, not to mention all the TV series, it's just not sustainable. Going by, hold on, going by the restructuring of Warner Brothers like DC and Disney, CEO Bob Iger talked about how we don't need so many sequels. The studios know it as well. Superhero movies were considered too big to fail, but as we've seen with diminishing box office returns, that belief system is breaking down.
Okay. Get, I guess it has now become time to once again teach these motherfuckers how to do basic math, okay? 6 movies in an entire genre over the course of a year is nothing. There are more than 6 bad horror movies in January alone, let alone the rest of the frickin' year, on average. The issue you have, people who don't like superhero movies, is that those 6 movies make more money than the majority of the rest of Hollywood combined. Because people, generally speaking, want to see them. So, no, it's not. Well, we thought the superhero genre was too big to fail. Oh, we thought we could keep sequels going for it. It's none of that. It's once again, people will come to see superhero content if the superhero content is worth seeing, or if the studio doesn't go out of their way to tell people that it isn't worth seeing, like James Gunn did. Because that's the thing. I think that if James Gunn hadn't opened his big fucking mouth with regards to Shazam 2, Shazam 2 would have made more than the first one. But because the announcement video happened, and also in the intervening time, James Gunn went out of his way to piss all over the previous continuity that everyone liked. It resulted in people basically boycotting anything that isn't everything that's prior to Superman Legacy and Creature Commandos. As for Marvel, the reason is fairly obvious. Is because nobody likes social justice on average, apart from the SJWs. Nobody apart from the people pushing social justice wants social justice, and the people who do push social justice very often don't buy tickets because they hate capitalism and they don't particularly like art for its own sake. And 2, because of the aforementioned people don't like social justice and the adjoining sort of postmodern deconstruction that goes along with it of there is no such thing as intrinsic value. Everything is a means to an end, and spiting fan bases is a good and moral pastime to engage in. Because of the combination of those two things, people have disengaged from Marvel. Not because they don't like Marvel, not because they don't like superhero movies, not because the market is oversaturated, quote unquote, with 6 movies and a couple freaking shows. A given, based on three studios over the course of an entire year. Mind you, that every other studio in Hollywood puts out 20 or 30 movies a year. It's not because oversaturation. It's not because superhero fatigue. It's because the content that people are getting for their money is not where they want it to be. But we can't ever address the quality variable because we have to run through this lattice of excuses where, oh, there's just too many superhero movies, even though there's only 6 in an entire genre made by 3 different freaking studios in a given year. Or oh, it's because my mysterious market forces. No, people are the ones in control of market forces. So if people are disengaging from your storytelling, it could be that the storytelling isn't worthwhile. It's not because the genre is kaput or something. Moving on.
Hmm. But knowing a star is a troll figure or that mistreated effects artists lead to lackluster final results aren't the only issues. There is also the problems of homework and frequency.
I mean, I agree with the first half of that. You will get crappy work if you mistreat the people behind the work. So yeah, that's fair enough. That's the one variable that I will genuinely concede. Part of the reason why superhero fatigue, quote unquote, is setting in is because the visual effects just simply aren't on par with where they should be. And because they aren't on par with where they should be, due to the fact that people are getting mistreated, people are disengaging. If the quality was there, though, I don't think people would disengage. Moving on.
I thought I was done with homework after college. For someone who took 20 pages of notes on a documentary about the history of the hot gates before 300 came out, uh, before I wrote about entertainment for a living. I don't mind researching the film, I love that stuff, but in the case of 300, I didn't need to do that. I did it because I wanted to, not because it was required to watch the film. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to understand what's going on in these superhero stories if you don't already have a pretty good knowledge of the MCU or the DCU. Okay, Dom, before you say something, may I?
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I mean, okay, I think I've said this before myself. I think the major issue I have with the intertextuality of superhero movies this these days is it's it is required, but more so the fact that it leaves too much out of other products, other uh, like movies and stuff. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's more or less going off the knowledge that you have seen those things instead of I don't know how to explain it. God damn it. I've said it before. I've said this so many times, but I can't think of the word right now.
Yeah, your brain is just not having a good day. It happens.
It'll come to me, I'm sure. But my point is that I don't necessarily disagree with what she's saying, but it's more so where she's taking it is the issue.
Okay, I have something of an issue with this particular mindset because here's the thing. What you call homework is ultimately just lore. Like it's just the natural geek impulse of I need to know everything I can about this. And it's what enables larger scale stories like a cinematic universe. The problem I'm seeing and the problem I will give you is that the problem with the problem with this kind of interconnectivity, especially when you cross mediums between TV and movies, because let's face it, a large part of the problem with MCU Phase 4 was so much of the necessary background information was split between movies, which people were previously used to being self-contained mostly, and TV shows that most people, for some reason, didn't want to watch. But here's the point I'm coming to, which is the problem with this kind of intertextuality isn't just the homework, quote unquote. It's the fact that prior to Phase 4, the intertextuality worked in the MCU's favor because everything in the MCU was high quality. So it didn't feel like homework, it felt like being in on an in joke. But as a corollary to that, as a double-edged sword of that, if you live by the intertextuality, you can also die by the intertextuality in the form of because everything in your universe is interconnected, if one or more of those connecting bricks is bad, like for example She-Hulk, like for example Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like for example the ending of WandaVision, if if the interconnective tissue is bad, then just like a rising tide can raise all ships, a lowering tide can lower them. I.e., if people are more used to the bad interconnective tissue than they are to the good movies, the badness of the bad projects is going to taint the goodness of the good projects. It's what we saw with Multiverse of Madness. I still to this day maintain Multiverse of Madness was a good freaking movie. But because there was some issues with WandaVision, because there was some issues with What If, because there was some issues with Loki, those qualities ended up, the lack of quality in those things ended up bleeding over into other things. Just like in the previous era, the quality could bleed into different things, so that we would excuse something like Thor: The Dark World because Captain America: Civil War was so good, and vice versa. Well, it can also work in the inverse. If WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk all leave something to be desired, well then people are gonna start pulling the strings when it comes to Thor: Love and Thunder or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Right. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's just
Did
like
you figure out what you wanted to say?
yeah. I mean, you were basically kind of explaining it better than I was, mostly.
Mhm.
But the thing I have an issue with is the over reliance of the context.
See again, I still maintain that if everything connected to the MCU was good, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
No,
But
I agree, but let me finish. Let
Mhm.
me finish. I was still talking.
Sorry.
What I mean by the over reliance is kind of is it's constantly building up. There's no like significant end to a story that has been built up over things like with Wanda or Multiverse of Madness. It doesn't feel like there's an end or like a fine point to a story. Like it's constantly building and building and building. There's no like rest for the audience. I guess
There's very little in the way of payoff, which I will agree has been one of Marvel's problems for a while now. I felt that was a major problem with Endgame. I really, really, really didn't like Endgame. I know that's heresy, but the thing of it was, I loved Infinity War so freaking much, and Endgame didn't cash any of the checks that Infinity War wrote, and so I really hated Endgame. Um, but I agree with you, Dragon Turtle. The idea of like vilifying interconnectedness is just stupid to me because it prevents anything of scale from being built. Yeah,
right. I'm not,
I agree with you, Dragon Turtle. I totally agree with you.
right. Yeah, that's not what I was trying to. If I came across trying to say that, I'm sorry if I did.
No,
Uh,
I don't think he was commenting on you. I think he was just commenting on the what the writer of the article was saying. I think.
right. But yeah, like there is a lack of payoff. That is kind of that is my issue more so than anything else. Is or I guess I would also say the word pathos, but I'm not sure if that's right in this context.
Mhm.
There's a lack of pathos.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from because none of the consequences land.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from with that.
I wasn't.
Um, but the thing I guess to sum up what I was saying because I didn't really get to the point because I'm also having a brain farty kind of day. I guess in a context where you know that intertextuality is the whole point of your universe, you have to make sure that every single brick in that wall is as good and qualitative as you can make it. Because when multiple bricks within that wall are bad or crumble, then it can basically end up being like a Jenga tower. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in the MCU now because there have been so many cracks in the wall. with things like She-Hulk, with things like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with things like Loki to a lesser extent, and WandaVision to a lesser extent, not really until the end. Now instead of the quality accumulating, the problems and the continuity errors are accumulating, and that's basically unraveling the entire tapestry. Yeah, I figured Dragon Turtle, but thank you for clarifying for us there.
Right.
And I totally agree with you. I hate whenever I see a lot of video essayists and film theorists, quote unquote, on YouTube especially saying this, where they'll like viscerally they'll like actively be rooting against anything that's a sequel, anything that's a continuation of an existing IP, and they'll always be cheering on these really obscure, standalone things, even though they're not any good, and even though they're not good enough to build anything on. And it always pisses me off because it's like in a healthy Hollywood landscape, if something is a good, singular movie, it will generate sequels, it will generate spin-offs, it will generate continuations, because when you make something good, people will organically want more of it. But all of a sudden, as soon as something that was previously standalone becomes a successful established IP, these hipster douches will penalize it for its success and go, well, I used to like it when it was a standalone thing, but I don't like it now that it's an IP. Tut tut tut. It's like, you do know that's what success means, right? Like, if something is successful, it will generate more of itself. That's the world functioning as it should.
Fucking tired.
Mm.
Oh. Well, yeah, usually on this time.
Yeah. Anyway, moving forward.
Yeah. Sorry. I've been a fan of this stuff for most of my life, and even as someone who can tell you a lot about obscure characters, I still have to give myself a refresher course for every entry. People like my parents who don't have a deep knowledge of this stuff have already given up. I used to be able to explain some things to them before a film, but it's too much now. I'd have to give a college level class on it. They have, life to live.
Well, okay, but again, okay, I don't accept that argument. I don't accept that argument at all, because in a world where we have Google and we have Wikipedia, quote unquote research takes 5 minutes. And I mean, hell, there are entire YouTube channels dedicated to literally, here is what you need to know about X, upcoming obscure thing, like new rock stars, Comic Story and Comics Explained. Like, these channels basically solely exist, heavy spoilers, that kind of stuff. All of these channels basically exist to be, oh, you need to know about this obscure thing that's coming out? Well, here, let me take 10 minutes and explain, like, the entire character, the character's entire history to you. Like, in a world where we have those resources, I'm sorry, but I have a life is not an excuse. Googling takes 5 seconds. It's just that some people are kind of disingenuous about shit.
No?
Yeah, moving on.
Uh, it's tough finding the walls for the studios. You have your hardcore fans who want you to go deep, but you've also got the general audience who's just tired of being forced to do schoolwork to enjoy 2 hours film.
See, I don't accept that metric either, because frankly, especially in the modern world, core fan bases are the majority of your money. Because here's the thing about core fan bases, when they're pleased, when they actually are getting what they want, your average hardcore fan of something will go to see a movie 6 or 7 or 8 times if it's a really good movie. Hell, even I wanted to go see Multiverse of Madness twice, and I almost never do repeat viewing. But back on point though. In modern day Hollywood especially, repeat viewing is the quintessential thing that makes blockbusters make a bunch of money. So you can actually compensate for the lack of quote unquote normie interest if you make something so good that those who do like it will come back, 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 times. Especially if you can get just enough of the normies to get on board with the hardcore fans to kind of meet in the middle somewhere. That's what the MCU is always good at doing, is they can slowly but surely, boil the frog with regards to the normies, and they can also get the hardcore fan base going 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times. And the modern day MCU is a perfect example. It's not that fewer people are watching the MCU movies in this day and age. It's that because the quality is low in this day and age, the hardcore fans that used to go 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times aren't doing repeat viewing anymore, and that's where the box office is lowering. So if anything, Hollywood should get it through their thick heads that if you build something of quality, some percentage of the normies will show up. But if you don't at least please the people who are already converted, you will never get the normies to show up either. Because why would you go out of your way to find my new audience, my modern audience, when the audience you have is already slavishly devoted to you? And in so doing, in the course of looking for my new modern audience, you might just piss all over the intelligence and loyalty of the people who will watch your thing 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times. And then the repeat viewing factor goes up in smoke. And because people in the core fan base are attracted primarily to quality first and get fan invested second, if the quality goes down for the core fan base, then chances are it's probably going to go down for the casual normies too.
Sorry. Okay.
You're still conscious there, Brainstormer.
Yeah, I'm good. That Charles, even if the core fan base is going to majority of the money, they are the stability of the fandom, not fair weather fans like the show is. Not sure if that is the right way to look at it, as there are some really committed casuals and some people who did dive and dip, especially whales in time and or cash, but those are rare. Hardcore, hold on. Hardcore equals loyal, casual equals tentative is still mostly true, and many people target loyal versus tentative anyway.
Yeah, but this is I guess the variable that I was sucking at explaining. A good franchise, a good IP, is good at pleasing the core fan base and then turning some percentage of those casuals slowly but surely. I again liken it to kind of the boiling the frog effect. A good IP can take a certain percentage of casuals and turn them into hardcores. A bad IP doesn't please the hardcores, and therefore, because the quality that the hardcores are looking for isn't there, most often the casuals won't show up either. Mm-hmm. But what we've discovered recently is the modern day art school approach of deconstruct all the things can actually alchemically revert that phenomena, where a good IP can take a casual and alchemically convert them into a hardcore. A bad use of an IP, a deconstructive use of an IP, can take those golden hardcores and turn them back into lead casuals again. And as usual with deconstruction, that's the wrong way around, you know.
You know?
Mhm.
Oh, God damn it. Okay, so I may have fibbed earlier when I said I got over my sickness. I still had got like cough slash dry throat.
Hmm?
I guess I'm still a little sick. What I'm saying,
Ah.
just like I don't know, so like dry throat or something. Like, throat sick or something. Okay. You can see it was titled like Thor: Love and Thunder, which I genuinely enjoyed, despite its flaws and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which didn't exactly storm the box office.
Excuse you? It made $950 million. Didn't exactly storm the box office. What the fuck? The only reason that movie didn't make a billion is because it didn't have China as a market. Because China usually, with regards to blockbusters and Marvel movies in particular, delivers about 100 million. And given that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was only 50 million shy of a billion, had China shown up for that movie, it would have made roughly a billion 50, which would have put it around the same threshold as Captain Marvel, which still I grant you isn't great, but it would have broken a billion. And the only reason why it didn't is because China didn't show up. Granted, with all the supernatural Lovecraftian shit going on in that movie, it was probably going to get banned in China even if COVID wasn't happening. But you know, que sera, sera. Moving forward, though.
Yeah, okay. Uh, too much multiverse.
Okay,
Okay.
I broadly agree with this statement for other reasons than I think she's about to go into, but let's see her reasons.
And I'll bring up I'll bring up, I guess I'll be a counter argument to this, sort of, when it comes
Hmm.
up. Something else to consider as superhero stories continue venturing into multiverses is confusion. Multiverse is a simplified concept when you're talking about comics. You have to wait for each issue so you'll have time to absorb things. With films, it's a lot to take in when they're happening frequently. Everywhere, everything, everywhere, all at once did well with it, but that's a standalone film. Different versions
Uh,
of characters, hold on. Different versions of characters are great for a little while, but if this is going to be an ongoing thing, it's a bit much for someone who just wants to watch a film at a theater after the pandemic to blow off steam and have fun. Okay.
okay, see, I don't think I agree with you that the multiverse gets old quickly, but I don't think it has to do with the multiverse being too high of a concept. I mean, hell, um, No Way Home made almost $2 billion again without China. Um, and had it released in China, it probably would have cracked 2 billion. But that's neither here nor there. Um, Point being, in my humble estimation, now granted, I admit I'm weird and my conceptual models are very much rooted in hyper intellectual weirdness in a way most people aren't. But in my humble opinion, multiverses are actually a little bit too normal because just like just like how sometimes get mad at people obsessing over space when we still haven't yet delved the depths of the oceans. I'm kind of miffed at the big superhero franchises focusing on a multiverse when there are aspects of a single universe they haven't gotten to yet. In my case, and this is going to surprise no one, I'm wondering why they didn't lean into the multi-dimensional aspects of a single universe first, i.e., other dimensions within a single universe, the ones that contain gods and demons and Lovecraftian abominations and different levels of existence and so on. That's what I would have done, and apparently, it's also what Sam Raimi, if left to his own devices, would have done, because there's a reason why Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness basically only contains one multiverse scene, and that's the Illuminati scene. Because Sam Raimi, much like myself, looks at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and he focuses on Doctor Strange and of Madness, and therefore wants to make a Lovecraftian horror comedy rather than a multiverse movie. But because it's part of the multiverse saga, and Marvel was breathing down his neck, he put basically one scene of a multiverse into that movie. And honestly, I think it would have been better off if it was Doctor Strange in the Realms of Madness or Doctor Strange in the Dimensions of Madness rather than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But again, I don't get consulted with these things.
So, so here's how I kind of look at it, right? The concept of multiverse, I think personally, is cool, but my issue with how it's been handled in superhero movies is more so or less the lack of creativity when it comes to these multiverses.
I think you and I might be kind of on the same page here.
And what I mean by that is like this is a different universe where some event or something kind of changed the course of things, right? And see how different that is, like an alien world, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But it never feels like that. Hell, I would honestly, legitimately say the Jet Li movie from the 90s, handled the multiverse better.
And again, I think this is why I lean more into the concept of multiple dimensions within a single universe rather than a multiverse. Because for those that need the kindergarten level explanation of the difference between multiple dimensions and multiple universes, multiple dimensions within a single universe works like the layers of an onion. It's all in the same onion, but there are different layers within that onion. And there might be different things on each layer of the onion. A multiverse would be a bag of different onions, basically, i.e., each bubble is a single universe, and the bubbles are separate. Whereas with the multiple dimension concept, it's layers of reality within a single universe. And I think Brainstorm and I are kind of somewhat on the same page here. I would rather see Doctor Strange, for example, go to Flatland as an example. Or hell, there was actually even a comic where Doctor Strange wound up in a version of Wonderland from Alice in Wonderland, where Agamotto of, Eye of Agamotto fame took the form of the hookah smoking caterpillar. God, I love that comic so much. Because it's basically everything I want in a movie. But that's neither here nor there. That's the kind of stuff you can do with alternate dimensions. You can have different layers of existence. It's also why I really hate the movie Inception, because the concept of Inception is supposed to be that dreams have multiple layers, but somehow each individual layer in the Inception movie was just as complicated as every other layer. If I were doing a movie like Inception, I would have had reality slowly break down the lower and lower you go into the layers of dream in Inception to one where maybe everything is hand drawn, maybe everything is done in lines, maybe everything is a giant expanse of white or something like that kind of stuff, rather than each layer of the movie is actually just another action movie somehow. Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you had anything else to add.
Well, I was gonna say is like, well, also it also seems to be somewhat of a cop out for producers of these, like with the Batman and the DCU and some James Gunn's bullshit. When again, we all can agree that the Batman should have been starting off point for a new DC universe.
Yeah, there's no reason why Robert Pattinson isn't the new canonical Batman of the James Gunn verse, other than the fact that Matt Reeves is apparently being an egotistic little bitch about it.
But yeah, that I think that's also kind of my issue is that more or less it is used to cop out for like saying, "Oh, these movies don't matter" or anything like that.
Yeah. And that's also a fair analogy, Dragon Turtle. I just for some reason go with onions. I think
But
because I watched Shrek at a formative age, and the ogres are like onions metaphor stuck in my head.
I have it on tape, or I did at one
Oh
point.
yeah, I had the original Shrek on VHS too. Oh,
Does
good times.
that does make me wonder something now?
Hmm.
How the hell do you get a CGI animated film on film?
That is a very good question that I do not know. I assume you basically just burn the CGI image over top of whatever the film would have been. I assume, just like how you can have CGI elements in a otherwise, IRL movie on VHS, or like how you can have animated characters interacting with live action things like Roger Rabbit or Looney Tunes Back in Action or Space Jam. Speaking of
Or
things that make me nostalgic, I love Space Jam was one of those movies I watched a lot as a kid.
or Cool World, if anyone knows that one.
That sounds vaguely familiar. It's not coming to mind.
I believe the Nostalgia Critic did a review on that.
Was that one of his older ones? I'm gonna have to go back and look for it now.
Well, okay, so basically it was kind of an early draft version of Roger Rabbit. Not like the concept, but more so like animation interacting with real world.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Or Bedknobs and Broomsticks. They also had a bunch of
Yeah.
sequences that were like that. But anyway,
Anyway,
speaking of Channel Awesome and Nostalgia Critic and stuff though, Dragon Troll, I was gonna send you stuff on the like Channel Awesome lore a long time ago when I was talking about it once, and I never remembered to. I'm gonna have to do that now. Because you said that like me you get into lore. So I will I will red pill you on the awesomeness of Channel Awesome
yeah,
at some point.
yeah, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, Add to the fact that it's getting harder and harder to watch a single film without having seen every other offering, and it's asking a lot of people who are giving you money to see a film. Fury of the Gods has a mid-credit scene that requires you to watch a TV series that isn't exactly friendly for all ages. A film that is targeted at kids might not want to see an R-rated show as a reference point. I mean, to be fair, that no, that just, I mean, like you don't really need to.
It doesn't massively alter the plot if you've never seen Peacemaker. Just like it doesn't massively alter the plot of Black Adam if you don't know who she
Hardcore,
it if
hardcore.
yeah, if Harcourt in when she comes to get him in Black Adam. Though granted, it does actually help you more understanding the ending, understanding especially the post credit scene of Shazam 2 if you watch Black Adam and therefore knew who the Justice Society is, assuming you don't already know. Which
Yeah,
shame on all of you for neglecting your knowledge of the Justice Society if you didn't already know them. But whatever. I've been beating that drum for 20 freaking years, and I'm never gonna stop beating it. I don't think.
um,
Moving on.
yeah, Looney Tunes back in action.
Yeah. I love speaking of things that I love that people for some reason don't like. I love Looney Tunes back in action. It's probably
Yeah,
the closest a live action Looney Tunes movie has ever come to actually resembling a Looney Tunes cartoon.
yeah, I like it. I like it. It's really good.
Hmm.
Fun. Anyway, if you didn't see Loki on Disney Plus, you are probably not going to get a lot out of Quantum. I mean, to be okay, so I will say this: DC actually handled the interconnectivity a little better than MCU has recently.
Hmm.
I think just because like more or less it enhances your enjoyment of the DC stuff if you see these certain things. While the MCU, like I said earlier, it's more or less so interconnected to the point that basically there is no given true payoff to any of it.
Yeah, and again, that would be less of a problem if everything in the MCU were good, but alas,
Yeah.
there are a lot of cracks in the armor that weren't there before in season 3 or in phase 3 rather.
Yeah. All right. The plot of the show is here's what you need to know to watch the next one. I mean, yes and no, but again, like we said earlier, that it really
I,
depends.
and again, it's one of those things that depends on quality because if the shows were good on their own terms, that wouldn't matter either. Like for example, WandaVision was absolutely fantastic right up until episode 9 where they pulled the rug out from the fan base and shat all over everyone's intelligence. Um like I still maintain that the best episode of WandaVision was episode 8, the one where Agatha basically takes Wanda to witch school and then plays Ghost of Christmas Past with her in her memories. But then again, it must be said that Agatha Harkness is the standout character of Phase 4 because she's the only newly introduced character that I give a fuck about and or that actually beats other pre-existing characters for my favorite character. Like as far as I'm concerned, Agatha Harkness is so far, mind you. That doesn't mean that Doctor Strange won't eventually get to where he should be, but so far, mind you, Agatha Harkness is the best magic user in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, even better than the Ancient One, because unlike the Ancient One, Agatha actually explains shit, whereas the Ancient One's the Ancient One's version of explaining how things work usually related to some kind of metaphor, and while there's some value in that, like the spells are basically the programming language of reality metaphor she used, I much prefer someone I can actually sit there and talk shop with, and Agatha is pretty much the only magic user in the entire MCU that I actually feel like explains how her magic works to the point that I could sit down and have a, you know, let's compare notes fellow practitioner moment. Which kudos to Jim Butcher, Harry Dresden has that effect on me all the fucking time, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on. Of course, sometimes I also want to smack Harry upside the head for being a moron, but that's also neither here nor there.
All right. I think multiverse stories can expand. Every new project seems to be an add one of the next one. In theory, it's fun to build and build on something, but this not a book series that gives you time and to process and remember what happened for the lead up, or
And on that
sorry,
point,
I misread that.
go ahead. Sorry.
But it's not a book series that gives you time in between process and remember what happened, or the lead up to Endgame, which gave us fewer things to keep in our heads.
And I think we both kind of agree on that to the point that I think the more important issue is you can build up all you want, but at some point you have to pay off. Alluding to Dragon Turtle's question though, as to Agatha, whether I define her as the best character in Phase 4 for character reasons or for being a good magic practitioner reasons, it's kind of both because just as a character, she kind of reminds me of like a cool grandmother. Like that's like she Agatha Harkness kind of reminds me of a slightly more evil version of the fairy godmother from Disney's Cinderella, as a character. She has that cool grandmother vibe to her, which I guess because she is she is the classical witch, should probably give me, Hansel and Gretel vibes, but especially because she sucks out other practitioners' magic when she finds them to be unworthy of their powers, which, that's neither here nor there. But between the just her having cool grandmother vibes um and also being probably the best and most well realized magic practitioner in the MCU, she is by far and away my favorite character introduced in Phase 4. So yeah, it's a little bit of a, for me it's a little bit of both situation there, Dragon Troll. Your mileage may vary depending on how much you care about such things.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I've been hearing friends and family and social media acquaintances complaining that if they're going to have to catch up on every single show and film once the new one, they're going to bow out. No one has the time for that. Plus, if you have people watching your shows because they have to, you're not doing the job of entertaining. You're giving us an assignment, and the grade depends on whether or not we can follow a whole lot of details and retain them for years. I mean,
I half agree and half disagree there, because on the one hand, I'm inclined to chastise people who say, "Well, I don't have the time or inclination to sit down and watch everything," because again, we have Google, we have channels dedicated specifically to explaining shit or summarizing shit. On the other hand, though, I agree because I agree to a degree because in a world where everything Marvel put out was good and worth watching, this wouldn't happen. I.e., people wouldn't check out if every show was the next Game of Thrones, which is kind of how WandaVision was right up until the last episode. But because the quality has also gone down, not only do you get the casuals disconnecting for stupid reasons, you get the casuals disconnecting just because they prefer to be more choosy about what they choose to watch because the quality just isn't there. And there I don't have a problem with it. I'm just one of those people who's OCD about identify the problem accurately, don't conflate parts of the problem that don't actually matter with other parts of the problem. Philosophical OCD and all. But anyway, moving on.
All all this is only exacerbated by the fact that even the writers seem confused by things, going by how convoluted everything is now. If we're getting new directors and writers for each super project, they're telling them next to nothing about what they're supposed to be pointing to or what the plot is setting up. It's a recipe for disaster. Okay, so I do have something with that. Like, given how like weird it is with like making a Marvel movie. Again, it is mostly Marvel. I think it has a lot of these issues.
Mm-hmm. DC doesn't have these issues because they're too busy having a bunch of other issues that resulted in them basically not getting their universe off the ground to begin with.
Yeah. I am working to fix that myself, not on an official level, mind you, but more of a fan kind of thing.
Uh-huh. And I mean, we also do have our own sort of quote unquote take on the Marvel Universe in the form of the Lionhearted universe, which literally did start as Brainstorm and I putting ourselves in the Marvel Universe and seeing what we changed.
Mm-hmm.
And then ballooned out from there like nobody's business. But whatever.
Yeah, mainly with Marvel, it's this whole weird thing that they do of like constant, like up to the moment they release the movie, they're constantly reshooting and reworking the script.
Yeah, they need to get better at setting a good foundation first, and then trying their damnedest to improve things as it goes along, rather than basically flying by the seat of their fucking pants.
Yeah.
Especially with regards to Phase 4 and Phase 5, because they could have been planning out the next three phases for an entire year while the world was paused due to the pandemic, but they didn't. They literally just sat on their asses pretty much for that entire year, and only once the pandemic was over did they finally go, "Oh, hey, I guess we need to find a way to, start a new storyline now that the Infinity Saga's over." Oops. And to be fair, I think DC also did this with the Flash movie, and we will see how well that worked out or didn't in about a month or so.
Right. Oh, what was I gonna say? No, I was not. I think I'm good for now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, maybe it will make sense once the entire MCU or DCU run is finished, but it doesn't look like there is a wrap up plan of any kind.
Yeah, no, there isn't one, and that is somewhat a problem. Only sort of though, because I sympathize with Kevin Feige's impulse of, if we keep telling good storylines, we can keep this going pretty much for as long as the comics did. The problem you have there, Kevin, is you guys skipped all the way from the Infinity Saga all the way to All New, All Different Marvel. And while most of what you've copied from All New, All Different Marvel has gone over better than the comics did because you fixed the characters in a lot of ways, you still skipped over like a good 30 or 40 years worth of storylines and went to a storyline that people didn't really like for very good reasons. Granted, it's because Hollywood is also lousy with social justice warriors in exactly the same way as the comic book industry was in like 2013, 2014, but you could have said no, Kevin. You're the guy who's in charge of this shit. And by all accounts, you were the one pushing for a lot of it. So, yeah, no, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? The thing is, I love superheroes. I want to keep watching these films. I just want them to be worth my time. If nothing changes, maybe fantasy flicks like Avatar or The Way of Water will replace the superhero genre.
Yeah, Avatar was shit, and if Avatar is really the best Hollywood can do to try and replace the superhero genre, then fuck all y'all. The superhero genre is gonna stick around a while. That being said, I think that the actual organic replacement for the superhero genre is probably going to be the video game genre. If Especially if Mario, the Sonic movies, and Detective Pikachu are any indication.
Uh, is there a video game I want to watch?
Hmm?
I'm trying to think if there's a. Sorry, no. You know what? No, I'll save it until we get to the end.
Okay.
Maybe action films like John Wick. Horror is certainly having a heyday, but that's par for the course. Thing is, the box office can't sustain things the way they are now. The spectacle films are the main movies getting people into theaters. Then messing up one of the major genres is a problem. How can this be fixed? Once people are interested, something will have to change, like the frequency. Marvel and DC, sorry,
No, go ahead.
Marvel and DC are not going to stop making superhero films, but they could maybe do less. Really don't get that many, to be fully honest.
Yeah, no. There are 6 movies a year from 3 different companies. Mind you, that this is the thing. People forget that the MCU is not a franchise. It Marvel Studios is an entire movie studio. And the average movie studio makes between like 15 and 30 movies a year. But Marvel Marvel Studios makes 3 movies a year, and DC might make 2 if we're lucky, and we might get the occasional independent one, and everyone loses their freaking mind. It's because people, for whatever reason, ever since the superhero genre has come onto the scene and become the dominant genre in Hollywood, the elitist powers that be, the aristocracy of the film world, have begged and pleaded for people to lose interest in the superhero genre. And every time the superhero genre has even minorly stumbled, they've swarmed like a bunch of sharks smelling blood in the water. And it really almost, and I'm not saying this writer in particular, because I believe this writer when she says that um she likes and wants superhero movies to keep doing well and stuff. Um, I believe this writer when she says that. But your average, variety contributing trade film journalist is an aristocratic fop who wants the superhero genre to fail. And it almost seems like now that the superhero genre does have enough cracks in it to say so, there's a certain percentage of people who I swear to God are pushing this superhero fatigue narrative just so that they can say they were right all along and that superhero genre can't be real art. And those people can go fuck themselves. Although I look forward to the ironic day when what replaces the superhero genre, by and large, is either going to be video game movies, anime movies, or some combination of the two, which will only further incense the hoity-toity aristocratic fucks who don't understand how geek shit can be seen as legitimate art. Here's the funny thing. Even if superhero fatigue does become a self-fulfilling prophecy, which I'm still, the jury is still out on, the thing that replaces it will be even geekier and even more niche than comics were. So even if we lose, even if we the fans lose in the comic book genre versus aristocratic fucks in Hollywood war, we're probably going to win anyway because what replaces the superhero genre will probably be the video game genre, the anime genre, or some combination of the two. Especially when you consider that some of the best and biggest and most successful video games ever made were superhero video games. Injustice, Arkham, etc. Moving on.
Ignoring casual fans to absorb deep cuts and find few. We're going to have to give people some breathing room to absorb it all. Give them time to get excited and want to look things up / do what we watch. Make us miss the films before you do another. I'll release 8 projects in 2022. That's insane. It's time to scale back. Do more one-offs like Werewolf by Night or The Batman. Let a story end. Let the reaction to a film breathe. Lots of people might be willing to catch up if it doesn't require 1/5 of their life each year.
Werewolf by Night wasn't a one-off. It was just the first installment in the monster corner of the MCU. I sort of take back my compliment to you now. If you're a real superhero genre fan, you would know that the monstrous corner of the Marvel universe is an entire thing unto itself. And the Batman is only a one-off because Matt Reeves is an egotistical prick.
I love these films. I want to continue loving them, but you've lost me. You've lost a whole lot of other people.
Again, people haven't been lost because of superhero fatigue. People have been lost because of quality. And therefore, people can be regained by quality. Again, I fully expect that The Boys Season 4 is probably going to be even more successful than The Boys Season 3 was. And Invincible Season 2 is probably going to be even more successful than that. Largely because Invincible is better than The Boys just inherently, but whatever. Anyway, next topic. Jesus, that was only the first one. Oh, God.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't gonna mention it. Yeah, 2 hours for one fucking article. It's actually pretty perfect, of course.
I mean, it's been a while since we've done quite that much rambling on a given topic.
Yeah. All right. So this is Marvel Studios, the Marvel teaser trailer.
Hmm.
I mean, we had to cover this.
Yeah, we kind of have to. Yeah. Um, I foresee this movie crashing and burning. I foresee this being Marvel's Birds of Prey. I think all the predictions that we made about the first Captain Marvel that didn't end up coming true because it came out right between Infinity War and Endgame, and therefore was kind of bulletproof. Um, I think might come to roost on this one. But anyway, Florkin Nana, because why not? I can fe- I can feel you kind of cringing at that.
Yes, and also I'm still tired.
Mhm.
But I did want to preface this preference preface
Preface
preface. Thank you.
or
Uh,
preface, depending on how you pronounce it. But
I would probably say preface.
mhm.
Preface this with I'll be honest, I completely forgot this was a thing.
Mhm.
I thought it was canceled until I saw the trailer.
No, yeah, yeah. I do find it funny that they basically conceded the ground of nobody liking Captain Marvel by calling this the Marvels instead of Captain Marvel 2.
Okay, well, if it is the Marvels, you know what? I'll get into it when we get into it. So
Mhm.
I'm just gonna say banana because I don't want to say them.
Florkin Nana.
I fucking hate you.
I know.
Captain Rambo? What the hell are you doing?
Entering the jump point perimeter. Better get you some readings, Fury. Hello? Hello?
Captain Rambo?
What's weird is the CGI doesn't look that bad.
No, not in this section of the trailer anyway.
That's just
The only
weird.
thing I can really say at this point in the trailer is I really hope Kamala shrieking at everything doesn't become a running gag because from what I remember of watching this trailer the first time I saw it, most of her jokes in air quotes were she's out of her depth on something and therefore screams bloody murder at everything.
I mean, logically, that would be what would happen.
I mean, sure, but if it's the only joke she has in the movie, I'm gonna hate her.
I mean, I agree that's stupid, but I'm just saying logically that would be a normal person's reaction.
Like after the first couple times though, especially given that we know she had previous superhero adventures because she had her own show and all. Um, like this one feels perfectly organic. If I suddenly found myself in a spacesuit, yeah, I'm a grown ass man, or at least a grown ass manlet, and because short, um, and I would probably still freak out if this happened to me today. But that being said, if this is if it's like it's shown in the trailer and this is the only joke she has, I'm gonna be annoyed.
Right. Fork and Nana sounds kind of forced, maybe for Nana or Fork Nana. For Nana sounds the robot for me anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, Flork Nana. That's fine. You are correct, Dragon Turtle. So Flork Nana.
Yeah, give me a second. Sorry. God damn it. I should not be able to talk. Well, no, I should be able to type it. Fine.
Mhm.
Is this an Avengers test?
Where's Captain Rambo?
I'm getting a weird tone from this. Just me.
Yeah,
or-
it's kind of unsettling is the thing. And I guess here is as good a point as any to bring up the three-part elephant in the room. None of these characters are particularly well liked by the general audience. Captain Marvel is Captain Marvel. We all know she is, you know, super powerful feminist Mary Sue resting bitch face. Monica is probably the most well liked of the three of them, but even Monica is tainted a little bit by the fact that she's the one who let Wanda off the hook in WandaVision and did that stupid they'll never know what you sacrificed for them line at the end of WandaVision, rather than chasing Wanda down, you know, General Ross chasing the Hulk style, which is what should have happened. Um, and Kamala, she's fine, I guess, but her show wasn't really anything special. It was kind of annoying, and there's only so many times they can play the, the feminist slash Muslim girl from Jersey card before that's gonna get on my nerves. So I just I don't really know who this movie is for, other than the obligatory. If we don't give Captain Marvel and the adjoining characters a sequel to work together in, it'll be as good as admitting we were wrong and that Captain Marvel was a Mary Sue character, which she was. So I just don't foresee this going well for anyone, basically.
Right, but honestly, it feels like they're trying to play up this. I mean, it's Marvel, so obviously, yeah, but this kind of. I mean, we all know the comments. I'm sure everyone here has seen the trailer, unless anyone in the comments tell me I'm wrong. The scenario that these characters find themselves in, which is they use their powers, they all get swapped, they all swap their places, right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to
It's being
figure out
confusing.
the
Sure,
like in-universe mechanics as to how that happens, to be fair.
yeah, because it's not given here, which it's a teaser trailer, so sure.
But like I am kind of a specialist in the like cosmic slash mystical side um of comic book universes. So you would think that if anyone would have some idea as to how they are switching like this and how their powers got entwined, I would know, but yeah, I got nothing. See, in the comics, this kind of thing kind of would have made sense because Monica and Carol kind of got their powers from similar sources, so that you could almost make work. But that doesn't work for MCU Monica because she got her powers from exposure to Wanda's Uber Hex. So, like, either it switched on something that was dormant in her already, which is possible, or she's literally been dosed with some of the cosmic semi-mystical chaos magic of the Scarlet Witch. But either way, so Carol and Monica's powers aren't really connected anymore. And to the best of my knowledge, whether you want to play the Jin card with Monica or with Kamala like they did for most of her show, or whether you want to play the dormant mutant gene card with Kamala like the post-credit scene implied, because that was stupid. There's nothing connecting the power sources of Kamala, Carol, and Monica. So I can't think of any in-universe Like, I can't think of any mystical MacGuffins or cosmic MacGuffins in the context of the Marvel Universe that could even be, like, tangentially linked to fusing three characters' powers together like this.
Dragon Turtle.
I don't know what you mean, Dragon Turtle, with regards to the mystic / Abrahamic divine in DC stuff. That probably would have made sense in the context of when you said it, but I am confused.
I was talking about the more recent movies made, which is Starfield Bats, Captain Marvel, the character, making her a Mary Sue feminist character thing is recent in their comic book history, but knowing humans probably going to keep it.
Oh no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that there was a firewall between the MonsterVerse and the rest of the MCU. Or the rest of the Marvel Universe. I meant that it is what I meant to say is that it is an entire facet of the Marvel Universe, as in it can constitute its own corner, like cosmic, mystical / monster, and like scientific / street level are all sort of different vectors of the same universe, is what I meant. But okay.
Okay, so.
But yeah, I agree with you. If they had written Captain Marvel like, the 80s Miss Marvel character before she got the we need her as a feminist stand-in makeover from like 2013 onwards, that character I like. That character is the kind of character I wanted. But because Brie Larson herself is that kind of uber feminist, and also because Hollywood is currently in the throes of muscle for justice, I guess this was somewhat inevitable, as sad as that is.
Anyway. Mm-hmm.
Yep, moving forward. Flork Nana.
Banana.
What the? Don't you tell me to stop! You stick around, I'll make you what you want. Hi.
We're looking for Kamala Khan.
See what I mean about the shrieking? There was absolutely no reason for her to little girl shriek at that. It might just be the clips that are in the trailer, and maybe there are other clips where she has a different punchline, but so far from what we've seen in this trailer, it seems like being a fish out of water who screams at everything is the only joke they bothered to write for Kamala Khan, and that's annoying.
All right. It just feels, it just feels weird. Like I don't really have like a concrete thing to say about it. It just feels like I'm not getting anything from this. You know.
The simple question is, what's the story? Where's the gimmick? What are we supposed to be invested in? Because the characters themselves and the interaction between the characters aren't enough to sell it on its own. Because sadly enough, people are either indifferent to Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan, or they have some reason or other to actively dislike them. So just seeing these characters interact with each other isn't going to be enough to sell the movie. I need a reason why what's the story, or at the very least, why is this story happening, and why is it a movie rather than a Disney Plus series, for example?
Or special.
Yeah, like why isn't?
Okay.
Go
I'll be honest.
Go ahead.
I'm actually getting more of a special vibe from this than like a movie or a series.
It feels very cheap. Yeah, it feels very cheap by MCU standards.
No,
Like
I
like
wasn't even like
almost like an also ran.
I wasn't even like referring to that. I was just saying like the premise and like what is being shown and like the style of it. It feels very like a special presentation kind of deal.
Like it easily could have been Miss Marvel season 2 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
kinda.
I agree with you. I don't really get because the typical way these things are arranged is the show is the connective tissue and the movies are the big events. Just like with I'm gonna use this example because I know me and Dragon Troll are both familiar with this franchise. In the same way as the Dresden Files short stories are Harry's day-to-day life, and the Dresden Files novels are sort of the most important weekend of any given year for him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which again, brainstormer, you should get into Dresden Files. I'm telling you.
So you watch Rick and Morty, right?
Yes.
You seen the most recent season?
Yes.
You know the line where Morty says to Rick, "You gotta fix the power gun," and Rick says, "The more you keep telling me to do it, the less I want to."
Uh-huh.
And
I know.
it's just like also you gotta keep in mind a lot of other things I'm doing currently that my mind's just
I
not.
I know, but here's the thing, especially given the way you write, I think not only would you enjoy Dresden Files just because Dresden Files is enjoyable, I want to see what your brain does with that input. I want to see how your brain manipulates Dresden Files into 1,000 other possible ideas because I know it will. You and I both know every time you get involved in a new franchise, your brain always is like, how can I use this in a story concept? And there's a
Yeah,
lot of things I think you could do with Dresden Files as the basis.
fair. That's another
Not to
huge thing.
mention the sheer just shipping factor of all the female characters I imagine you simping for once you get that far in the series.
Right. I was making a joke, Drancho. Another huge thing for you. Yeah, I'm actually a very reverse bandwagon kind of guy with like so many people like telling me like or like I see like the big pull this certain thing has. It kind of makes me less likely to want to like look into it.
I know, but I on the other hand though, have I ever steered you wrong?
No, you haven't.
Ever in the like 4 years that we've known each other?
No, but you do insult me a lot. So
I mean I do, but
uh,
we insult each other because we love each other, and that's just how it works.
fair enough. Okay, so another
You
huge
lazy
thing.
Mexican bastard.
Another huge thing for your example, and this the short stories are not necessary to understand the DF books. They do give you more, but you aren't penalized for not reading them.
I mean, it seems like based on Peace Talks and Battlegrounds, the short stories are going to become more relevant as time goes by because I imagine someone who hasn't read the Bigfoot trilogy of short stories probably was very confused by the existence of River Shoulders in Peace Talks and Battlegrounds. Also, wasn't River Shoulders also mentioned in Skin Game when Harry met the Genosqua? Or Blood on His Soul, as I suppose his name is.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, badass villain names for the win, but you know.
Alright, you only have a minute left, so
Mm-hmm. Fork
Yeah.
Nana.
Okay, so our powers are entangled. I can manipulate my energy, and you, I can totally show you. Hi, where's our daughter? Wherever you are.
I'm not. I just.
It
It's
feels like a bad parody of a Marvel movie almost.
No, it just feels empty to me.
And again, my, world building loving ass is like, could you explain why and how your powers got intertwined, please? Because it makes no sense to me. And it's not even a case of I maybe haven't seen some of the supplementary material. Like I've watched WandaVision, I've watched Miss Marvel, and I've seen the original Captain Marvel. Like I know that they switch because I saw the finale of Miss Marvel and the post credit scene. But I still need to know how and why, especially because as I just went over, their powers are intertwined in this universe quite so closely as they are in the comics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Flor Canana. Was it just my imagination, or are they trying to avoid showing Carol Danvers because they know people don't like Carol Danvers?
I think she's in there.
Seems like the main focus of this trailer was Monica, or not Monica, but Kamala. But maybe I'm reading too much into it.
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Anyway, Flor Canana.
We're a team. No, we're not a team.
Oh, great. Comes out on the month next birthday.
Oh, that's got a sting.
You fucking thing.
A bit.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It feels weird. Like, it just feels inconsequential to everything. Like,
It feels like an afterthought. The entire movie basically just feels like this movie is here just because we feel like it, just because it was on the schedule, basically.
right. So there was something I was going to bring up earlier, but I wanted to save my thoughts until the end.
Mhm.
So the name is the Marvels, and it did depict like Marvels, sure, but there's only one Marvel I am super interested in. I don't think they're ever going to put this character in.
You're missing Blue Marvel, are you?
Yes.
Now, granted, this is the teaser trailer. Maybe they're saving him for one of the later ones, but
And I do want to. I do want to like give a little bit of backstory on the Blue Marvel. Adam Brashear. The scientist who got like augmented through a freak accident that mutated his body to They're mutated by radiation generated by the then unstable event horizon to the nuclear zone. Give him like a lot of superpowers and stuff. Although in comics lore he existed in the 60s, but and this goes with his lore. Like his identity was
He wore a mask to prevent people from knowing he was black for a while.
but his identity got exposed when his mask was damaged in battle. That was more or less to explain why he never showed up in earlier comics, like during the 60s and stuff. Like he is a
It's a retcon, but it's honestly a good retcon.
he's a super cool character. He's like a super genius, and he's done like a lot of cool stuff like behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
He is very much like a Superman. Like Marvel has a lot of Superman surrogate characters.
Yeah, there's the Sentry, there's Hyperion, there's
Gladiator. Gladiator.
There's Gladiator. There's Blue Marvel. There's Power Kid.
Mm.
If anyone remembers Power Kid.
Sounds familiar. But yeah, they have plenty, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
There's also there's like a Solar Man when they did like a legit true. It was like
when they were legit spoofing Super. Although to be fair, Hyperion again is basically the closest that Marvel can come to writing Superman without writing Superman kind of thing.
He's also written by a really cool dude. Like he's a writer and an actor. Hold on, I'm gonna look up his name real quick. Yeah, he's also like super powerful too.
Mm-hmm.
But
again, there are a lot of Superman, and even the original, male Captain Marvel is kind of a Superman type character as well.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Creveau, who honestly probably could play his own character. Fun fact, he was he's like a big writer. He's done comics and movies and stuff. He's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Although he is 60, so.
Well, I mean, most of the greats are getting up there in years.
True.
Is Roy Thomas still alive?
Roy Thomas.
Thomas is spelled with an H.
Yeah, Thomas always is. So, that would be Tomas. Thomas.
Which reminds me of the time when Harry's brother, the White Court vampire, pretended to be French for a while.
He's 82.
Okay, so he's still alive then. Good. We are still. What about speaking of? I'm just gonna rattle off a bunch of my favorite writers now. What about Steve Englehart? Arguably the best Doctor Strange writer ever, and yes, even more so than Steve Ditko. Don't at me. I'm pretty sure Roger Stern is still alive because he was still fairly young when he wrote his Doctor Strange. Okay, so he is old, but he is still alive. Yay.
Anyone else?
Like I said, I think Roger Stern is still definitely alive. I know Steve Ditko died because I remember when Steve Ditko died. But yeah. So most of the good Doctor Strange writers are still alive. Yay. Granted, they're probably never going to write him again, but I will take solace in the fact that they are still alive and that I still might meet them someday. Am I the only one who's ever been annoyed at that when you really love a historical figure and you're upset they died before you could beat them. Because like that's happened to me a couple times.
But yeah, this is really the only Marvel currently that I'm interested in watching anymore, or would be interested in watching. Granted, they probably fuck them up, but
Dragon Turtle, you're all caught up. You remember the hairdresser Tomas era, and I doubt that most people who stumble on this randomly within a couple of years, probably when me and Brainstorm were promoting Lionhearted, are either going to be journalists sent here to write hit pieces on us, or are going to be nerdy enough that they probably also will either want to get into Dresden Files or have already gotten into Dresden Files.
funny enough, we have created our own Captain Marvel for Lionhearted.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
Specifically, Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel.
Yeah, she's called Golden Nova, and she's basically a walking supernova, and she's awesome.
But yeah, like to go like kind of bring up like what you said earlier, Daniel. It does suck that Carol Danvers has kind of gotten fucked over in recent years.
Yeah, because she's actually a really cool character. I would have loved to have seen a movie based on the character as she actually is.
To be fair, I have not read any of the comics that like the better version of her that has appeared in, nor the worst versions of her appeared in. I have the only like knowledge I have of Carol Danvers is from Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Oh, EMH, you were gone before your time.
Probably the best, to be fair.
I mean, true, but honestly, I wish that rather than Marvel canceling EMH to make a Avengers show that was more in line with the MCU, I wish the MCU had almost taken more cues from EMH.
Yeah.
Because that would have been awesome, but nevertheless.
Anyway. I don't know if we might have to call it after this article.
Well, if that's the case, then skip right to the end trailer, and we'll just move the we'll move the Captain Marvel article to not tomorrow but next week.
Okay. Yeah, because I'll be honest, man, I'm about ready to keel over from sleep.
Yeah, I figured that's why I suggested it. So on to the obligatory good/fun thing. You tired too, Dragon Turtle? Did Brainstormer fall asleep before he could even load the next bit?
I was setting things up. Sorry.
Okay. The pause between moving between things was a little longer than usual, so I'm like, did he really fall asleep before he could even hit the share screen button?
It was taking a good minute to load. So.
Uh-huh.
Oh, he meant the EMH thing.
Oh, about the EMH thing. Okay. Yeah, EMH is awesome.
You know, they had concept art where they were going to like show like X-Men, and one had Rom the Space Knight in it.
Why can't we get a ROM movie or series or something? I like ROM. Now, granted, we in the Lionhearted universe have kind of our own Rom adjacent thing, but it's still, I like Rom.
Well, I think I know the reason why Rom has a name for a movie. Legal rights to the movie.
Yeah, the rights with Rom are weird because there was a time when he belonged to Dark Horse for a bit. Still, Rom's cool.
It's weird. Like, you expect Hasbro to have the filming rights, and effectively Paramount too.
Yeah, somebody do something with Rom. It's robot Green Lanterns fighting evil space wizards. What's not to like about that?
You don't know who Rom is, Daniel?
Oh, honey. Now, in addition to sending you all the lore stuff with regards to like the Channel Awesome reviewers, I'm gonna have to send you Linkara's Rom retrospective.
I mean, okay, so I could kind of understand it because given Rom was never really given.
Yeah, Rom is very obscure, but yeah, for future reference, Rom is just one of the most badass corners of the Marvel universe that never gets any love.
There's actually okay. I mean, to be fair, the whole lore and character was created for Marvel Comics, which was meant to help sell the toy. It was actually kind of crap in like
Yeah.
the 80s, I believe.
But nevertheless, he gained a life of his own. Much like the Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before him, he gained a life of his own from those humble and entirely commercialistic beginnings. To the point that at one point he crossed over with Doctor Who, because at one point Marvel held the comic rights to Doctor Who. So Rom is the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation that separates Doctor Who from Doctor Strange, because he's crossed over with both of them. And as you can imagine, that means, in my head, he's even more badass. Also, Rom existing means the Dire race also exists, which is basically a race of spacefaring dark wizard aliens. The Dire race are awesome as well, as far as villains go.
Anyway. Yeah, there's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse trailer that came out a little bit about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're gonna watch this, talk about it a bit. Kelly Banana.
We shall Spider Nana, because Spider-Verse.
My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
Oh yeah, you were supposed to be here at 5.
All right, whatever.
Whatever.
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian?
I am the Spot.
Oh, don't diss the Spot. The Spot's badass.
Yeah, there's actually a version of the Spot I have seen that was actually supposed to be like this silent assassin, like in comics. I mean, it's a guy who can create portals to anywhere. He's so wizard.
Yeah, the spots on his skin are basically mini collapsed black holes that he can like weaponize. He also can like weaponize them like shurikens and shit. The Spot's just genuinely pretty awesome.
He'd be a terrifying villain too.
He's basically Polka Dot Man from the Suicide Squad, except instead of weaponizing random polka dots of energy, he can weaponize black holes.
Although, to be fully honest, even in the comics, they have treated him like a joke a lot. So
I mean, yes, but I remember first quote unquote meeting the Spot in the Spider-Man the Animated Series episode with him, where he had that portal generator and it eventually broke, and so he literally just became a bunch of living portals. Like, the Spot's badass.
no, I agree. I'm just saying. Like,
Yeah, no, he gets treated like a joke all the time, but I just respect the Spot, damn it. # respect the Spot.
I don't think I can do anything about the echoing on your end, Dragon Troll.
It is echoing a little bit for me too. I think it might be on your end.
I'm not entirely sure what I can do.
Try jumping out and coming back in and see if that helps.
Yeah, okay. Give me a
Sometimes
second.
it's just StreamYard being dumb.
All right, give me a second.
Yep. Come to think of it, the character that's loosely based on me in the Lionhearted universe, kind of his powers are sort of similar to the Spot, except that instead of using random black holes, he can basically use any given shadow as a portal. But that's neither here nor there. Well, that's why I said like collapsed black holes, because obviously if they were fully functional black holes, the Earth would have been swallowed many times over. But they're collapsed in such a way that they basically function similar to cartoon. They function similar to the black holes that might appear in like cartoons and stuff.
All right, I'm back. Let's see if this works.
Okay.
Oh, I'm tired.
It can if they're on separate dimensional planes, Dragon Turtle, which is I think how they usually explain his powers. Like each spot is its own like separate dimensional plane.
I don't think they ever came up with a like concrete idea. To be fair,
I think they vaguely alluded to it before, or maybe I just fixed it for them in my head. But either way, that's my explanation. Is each spot is actually its own separate dimensional plane.
okay. Still digging the art style. It's pretty cool. Very awesome.
I mean, I'm glad the spot is here, if nothing else. So good for you for at least referencing the spot exists.
Color too. I'm sorry. I know it's all, we always bring it up, but goddamn, if it wasn't such a prevalent thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, banana.
Yeah, Spider Nana. Which now I almost want there to be a comic of.
Anyway,
I mean, there's a Spider Ham, so why not?
I don't even want to know what that would look like. Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not funny.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Piles of grades are pretty good.
are pretty good.
A and AP
A and AP
physics.
physics.
And a B in
And a B in Spanish.
Mira,
eso es imposible.
I gotta go. Bye.
He's lying to you.
Hey, Brainstormer, he pulled a U. But I'm sorry. I had to. It was right there.
Yeah. I got nothing really to say.
No, it's just good so far. Unsurprisingly, so Lord and Chris Miller still can do no wrong. Their record remains unblemished.
Whoa. Sorry, I'm just.
Yeah, I know. You're struggling to maintain awakeness. Anyway, Spider Nana.
I think you know it.
Can I get out of here?
When? So wait a minute. There's an elite group with all the best spider people in it?
Okay, I love the space between universes here. I love it so much.
I got none. I'm just like, yeah, cool.
Spider Nana.
Use the new guy.
Use the new guy.
This is unbelievable. This is the lobby.
Gal O'Hara. The whole thing was his idea.
What's the guy got to do to join this spider team?
You can never be part of this.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange, the little nerd back on Earth 1999. Come on, go eat.
Okay, thank you for at least getting the Marvel Cinematic Universe's number designation right, unlike Multiverse Madness. As much as I love that movie, that was a massive oversight.
Yeah, I was actually of the under the impression. There's some. I remember Miss Terrific from the Injustice animated movie. I know it's shit, but it was a good point he mentioned in there of like how every universe, every Earth would see itself as Earth 1.
Yeah. But even so, like it's been canon in the comics for years that the cinematic universe is 19999. So thank you for I never thought I would see the day when a Sony movie did something correct that a Marvel movie didn't, but here we are. Also, thank you for acknowledging that No Way Home was Peter's fault. For some reason, people think that Doctor Strange was to blame for that, and yet his only crime was trying to help his friend. Meanwhile, Peter's crime was not shutting up while someone was casting.
I kind of think blame falls on a lot of people, to be fair.
Mostly Peter, though.
No, he's a fucking idiot. I've made my opinions on the MCU Spider-Man for known at this point. So.
Yeah, granted, they probably should have had this conversation before they opened the spell, but you know, when someone is in the middle of a magic circle casting a spell, is not the time for chit chat. Anyway, moving on. Spider Nana.
He had a terrible teacher.
Peter!
You have a baby.
I have a baby.
I'll take it from here. Miles, being Spider-Man is a sacrifice. You have a choice between saving one person and saving every world. Send me home. I can't do that.
We can do both! Spider-Man always.
Not always.
Interesting concept. I'll give it. Although it does feel a bit weird because I think some people were mentioning this before. Is like Miles is like one of the only ones who hasn't lost. Well, no, he lost his Uncle Aaron, so I think that argument.
Yeah, so pretty much everyone in the Spider lexicon have lost somebody as their defining thing. In the case of Cinematic Peter, I still think it's canon that he lost 2 people because his suitcase in freaking Far From Home said Ben Parker on it, and he alluded to having already lost someone in Civil War when Stark came to recruit him. So, in my canon, unless it's stated directly otherwise, Cinematic Peter has lost 2 people, not just 1.
But yeah, that is the defining trait of Spider-Man. One of them is that in order to understand that power has a consequence.
Yeah, the classic Stanley's razor of with great power, etc., etc. They have to. Granted, it would be nice if in at least one universe they didn't have to lose somebody to learn that lesson. But you know, that's an interesting concept for a what if. What if Spider-Man was smart enough not to need that hammered into his head?
I think there is kind of an issue that's been hanging over my head with this when the sequel was announced. Is the overabundance of spider people and they kind of forget the story and the characters.
Well,
That-
I mean,
it's just it's a general worry, you know. I don't think it's unfounded, mind you.
I wouldn't worry. It's Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Again, they made the Lego movie, which should have by rights been commercial trash. They made it one of the most meaningful movies of that year. So like, I have faith in Phil Lord and Chris Miller, if nothing else.
But anyway, Kelly,
Spider Nana?
Banana.
What about Uncle Ben?
If not for Uncle Ben, most of us wouldn't be here.
I can't lose one more friend.
Else isn't what we talked about.
You do?
There's no idea what you're doing.
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go.
I mean, to be fair, in most Spider-Man's universes, Gwen is yet another case of most of them have lost. Which I wish someone would sit Spider-Gwen down and have them actually address that. Of like have some of them recognize her and be like, Gwen, I can't believe you're alive in another universe, and so on and so forth. I wish they would actually address that.
I think in the actual in like the Spider-Verse event, that was briefly touched upon, but
because that's the thing in infinite multiverse, especially one where Gwen is the main character. You can't tell me that you wouldn't have Spider-Men from all across the multiverse basically lining up to court her just to get back the woman they loved and lost.
a bit weird, but
I mean, it's one of those things. Once the multiverse cat is out of the bag, it's the Rick and Morty effect of, if everything is possible in an infinite universe, then you could go to a universe where whatever tragic, life-defining thing happened didn't happen.
I think that's a cop out in stupidity.
I mean, sure, but again, to use Doctor Strange's line, in the grand calculus of the multiverse.
That 1 million is quarterly. Yeah, so big. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not sure how I feel about it. Yeah, that's fair. Ensembles are always hard to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
Even when they're good, there's still some.
Yeah, but I think that Phil Lord and Chris Miller have at least earned enough faith with me that I'm not super worried about it.
Anyway.
If it were anyone else at Sony, I would be shaking in rage and fear. But Phil Lord and Chris Miller are Phil Lord and Chris Miller, so.
I mean, also it looks good. Again, like it looks really good and cool.
Yeah, and I know we're broken records with regards to this, but good use of color, everyone.
Yeah. And some people have really adopted the style of Spider-Verse with like they kind of more just how it's all animated and stuff. And
Yeah, like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish kind of pilfered the style.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it doesn't become such an overused art style, mind you. I doubt it because they had to invent it effectively.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good art style. So if anything's going to get repeated, I would much rather that style get repeated more than the like Teen Titans Go or Thundercats Roar art style get repeated.
Or a little more of the Pixar kind of look lately.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like how
yeah, a lot of the Pixar, like Soul notwithstanding, pretty much everything Pixar has made recently has looked kind of just generic.
Yeah. Anyway, so,
That's not to say I didn't like some of those movies, because I really enjoyed Onward. Surprise, fucking surprise. Don't like the magic one, but whatever.
no,
Spider Nana.
I'm gonna do my own thing.
Stop Spider-Man.
I like how it's incorporating like different art styles and stuff. I mean, I know it did do that like before, but even now it's more prevalent.
Yeah, there's one thing that I want from this movie that I'm probably not going to get, and I'm just going to have to get over it. Given that this is, in a multiversal scale, I would love to see Madam Web from the Spider-Man animated series again. The one that's basically a cosmic entity on par with the Beyonder. I really liked Madam Web as a character, but I'm probably never going to see her in this or in any other Spider-Man related thing, sadly.
Aren't they going to do a Sony movie with Madam Web?
Yeah, but it's not that Madam Web. It's the street level character version, not the cosmic sort of almost fairy godmother-esque figure of the animated series, which is the one I like.
I mean, that's the only one I know. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even though the Madam Web in Spider-Man the Animated Series is nothing like Madam Web from the comics, I like I like the version from the animated series better. Because I like the idea of Peter having a all-seeing like mentor figure, and someone who can test him and throw him into different circumstances and stuff like that. Also, it doesn't hurt her chances of me liking her that she first appeared in the Doctor Strange episode of Spider-Man the Animated Series, because I'm a predictable son of a bitch.
On par with Beyond. What the fuck?
Yeah, she was the Beyonder's apprentice in the Spider-Man animated series. She was a cosmic entity.
Huh. Anyway.
Oh, you didn't see the episode where Doom showed up and stole the Beyonder's powers and they were all brought to the same universe and stuff?
Battle World.
Was basically an adaptation of like Secret Wars and Battle World and stuff. I think that was the one where they revealed who Madam Web actually was.
Anyway. So.
No.
I looked at my own head and
Let me guess.
Kind of weird that Spider-Man is giving therapy to Spider-Man.
Yes, the Beyonder showed up in one of the Marvel animated series. I want to say it was one of the season finales of the Spider-Man animated series, but it might have been after. It might have been in Spider-Man Beyond, what did they fucking call that? The sequel show that was in continuity with Spider-Man the animated series, where he went to the future with the like souped up suit.
Spider-Man Unlimited, and it was an alternate birth.
Okay, but irregardless, at some point in the continuity of the like Marvel animated series universes, the Beyonder showed up, and it was revealed that Madam Web was his understudy, and then Doom, being Doom, stole his powers, and they basically had to talk him out of it, because that's the only way to deal with Doom when he's like that.
It's weird. I was watching Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur on Disney when I didn't have my internet, and I was just watching cable. Good show, by the way. Actually, I mean, it is like a Saturday morning cartoon. good, like the old Saturday morning cartoons.
I was watching Thorius Unlimited today, and he was reviewing an episode of Gotham Knights, so that we don't have to, thank God. And he made a comment about how Batman the Animated Series was better written than most modern TV dramas that are supposedly made for adults. And then I mentally went through and made a list of all the like 90s stroke 2000s action cartoons that are better and more dramatically written than modern TV dramas made for adults. It's disturbing how long that list was.
Right.
Because it included the entire DC animated universe, the entire Marvel animated series universe, all the Man of Action shows, all of the like 80s cartoon reboots like He-Man and Thundercats and TMNT from the 2000s, and even like SWAT Cats. That's just disturbing that like cartoons made for children from 20 or 30 years ago are better written than shows currently being written for adults, apparently.
But yeah, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur it's fun, it's enjoyable. Again, it's not like DCAU level. I would say the wacky episodes of Teen Titans.
When did Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur come out? Because I don't remember it.
It's still going on. I don't know when it came out. I think maybe like a year or so ago.
Okay, so it's a modern thing.
Yeah.
That would explain why I don't have any memories of it.
But yeah, there's a version of the Beyonder in there. He's funny. He's like very much like a trickster kind of character in there.
So he's basically Q from Star Trek.
Yes.
If John Delancey voices him, I'm gonna laugh hysterically.
No. It's someone else. I can't remember who it was, but
okay, but because as much as people complain about typecasting, there are actors who thrive off of typecasting because John Delancey plays a nigh omnipotent trickster character whenever he possibly can. He played Q in Star Trek, then he went on to play Discord in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Then he went on to play a literal deal-making devil named Cecilman in the Librarians universe. Like, dude just loves to play omnipotent trickster characters, and I'm here for it.
Okay, I was wrong. And it came out this year. My bad.
Okay, that would explain why I haven't seen it yet.
Lawrence Fishburne voices the Beyonder in the show.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Lawrence Fishburne has been so awesome recently, especially that he's approaching Lawrence Fishburne as always a win status.
I think he is.
Because I mean, you've got Morpheus from The Matrix, obviously. You've got didn't he also voice Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer?
Yeah. He
played Jack Crawford in the Hannibal TV show, and of course he played the motherfucking Bowery in John Wick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's again, I've only been able to watch like a few episodes of it, but I would recommend watching it. It is more targeted towards younger audiences, and it's very quick. It's like only 15-minute episodes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very quick.
Mm.
But it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it completely went over my head, but cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess that's where we should be calling it, so that you don't literally fall asleep on your keyboard.
No, that'd just be my desk. My keyboard is far away enough that I don't. Maybe not. I actually probably would hit the edge of my desk before I hit my keyboard.
Okay, so Brainstormer doesn't literally faceplant into his desk. We should sign off now.
Yeah. So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avizai, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off.